Hey, Mercy Village Church, just want to spend a few minutes with you on this Tuesday morning as we continue our study through the New Testament books, learning of the life of Jesus after his birth, but before his ministry actually begins. And now, the last few weeks we've spent our time in Matthew, which recalls the story of his trip to Egypt and then being called back to Nazareth is where they end up settling. But when we look today in Luke chapter 2, we're going to go right off of the story of the nativity scene as we know it. And we're going to look at Luke chapter 2, verses 21 through 24. It's just a few verses here, and it actually will back us up before they actually leave for Egypt. And we see, as we look at these few verses, Luke chapter 2, verse 21, we see, and at the end of 8 days, when he was circumcised, he was called Jesus, the name given by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. And when the time came for their purification, according to the law of Moses, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As it is written in the law of the Lord, every male who first opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord. And to offer a sacrifice according to what is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. Okay, so we see this passage. There's some kind of familiar things going on with our culture today, but then there's some other things that are kind of maybe confusing to us. So we want to kind of unpack these verses. If we look in chapter 21 or verse 21, we see at the end of 8 days he was circumcised. Okay, and then he was called Jesus. It says here the time of purification was 40 days. And the way that was found is if you look back in Leviticus chapter 12, and you can look that up in your time here, it talks about circumcision after 8 days. But then it's also this time of purification before the mother was able to enter into the temple. And so we see this time would be a 33 days plus the 8. And so we see that that's about the 40 days that we're looking at. Now, one of the other interesting things is we see that he was called Jesus. It makes a point to tell us that. And if you recall, the angel of the Lord came to Mary and said that his name will be called Jesus. Jesus in Hebrew means Yahweh saves, or the Lord saves. And so his very name is a proclamation of that. We see in, also in verse 22, it says they brought him up to Jerusalem. So they're going to the temple. And when it says up to Jerusalem, one interesting point of geography, we see that Jerusalem, no matter where you came from, was always going up to the city because it was a higher elevation. It was actually on a mountain. And so we see them point that out in here. And then it talks about the law of the Lord. We see that it says that sacrifice according to what is said, the law of the Lord. They bring a pair of turtle doves and 2 pigeons. And the interesting thing in that is that we see that Mary and Joseph are of poor or modest means. Meaning they don't have a lot of livestock. They don't have a lot of money. And so traditionally they would bring a lamb for sacrifice. But we see them here bring the birds. And they offered what they had to give. And so the main theme of this passage, I feel like, is that we see that they are faithful to God. They honor him through their religious practices at the time, through the customs. They take Jesus to the temple, and we'll read about that in the next couple weeks. But we see that they are faithful to what God has called them to by the way that it talks about him when he was circumcised, that his name is called Jesus, which they were told, and then just their faithfulness to present a sacrifice to God because of the birth and to celebrate that. And so I just want to encourage you today to be faithful to God where he has called you to. No matter where you're at in life right now, through parenting or through relationships, through your job, that just encourage you to be faithful to what God has called you to do. As we go out today and we set our sights on whatever it is that God has us in wherever we find ourselves, to be faithful to what God has called you to, because He loves you, He is for you, and so we cannot fail with His guidance, with His strength, and going before us. And so just be encouraged today. I hope you have a great day. I hope this brings you closer to God in some way, that you just find Him wherever you are.